Sing, rise, high as the listening skies. Let us rejoice, loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the hope that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song filled with the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
I don't know the words.
I don't know it either.
Good evening.
Good
I
evening.
am Reverend Matt Rasher, and I'm the minister at the First Baptist Church of Medford on Oakland Street. It is my pleasure tonight to welcome our mayor, the Honorable Stephanie Burke, esteemed members of the City Council, members of the Medford Interfaith Clergy Association, and other distinguished guests. It is the greater honor tonight to welcome you, the people of Medford, people of goodwill from all of the surrounding communities. You are why we are here tonight. These are challenging days. The events in Charlottesville last weekend, the events portended for Boston in a few days, leave us with heavy hearts. They leave us scared. They leave us mad. And tonight, we come together to resist the forces of hate that are so very strong, and to unite as a community. Neighbor with neighbor, hand in hand, we denounce the evil of white supremacy. We denounce the evil of racism. We denounce the evil of anti-Semitism. We denounce the evil of Islamophobia, of homophobia, of transphobia. We stand tonight. We stand tonight to affirm the power of love to heal the wounds in our society and to bring us closer to justice. We can only do this by learning to affirm the integrity and dignity of our neighbors. We are here tonight to look one another in the face with eyes of compassion and to say, whoever you are, I see you. If you've come here tonight bruised and battered, denied and rejected because of the color of your skin or your immigration status, tonight we say, I see you.
I see you.
If you've come here tonight weighed with the burdens of the assumptions people make about you, about your religion, about the accent with which you speak, about the dress and the customs that you hold dear, tonight we say, I see you.
I see you.
If you come here nauseated at the thought of what we might read every single morning, of what might have happened the night before, and scared to face the new day tonight, we say, I see you.
I see you.
And if you have come here with hearts on fire, ready to resist the powers of hate, tonight we say, I see you.
I see you.
I see you, I honor you, and together we can resist. is now my great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Stephanie Burke, Mayor of the fine city of Medford. Mayor Burke, I see you.
Reverend Matt, I see you as well, and all of you. Good evening, clergy, fellow elected officials, Medford residents, and friends. It is with a heavy heart that I am here before you tonight. We are here to stand in solidarity with the family of Heather Heyer and all those fighting against injustice, fighting against hate, and fighting against racism across our nation every single day. We share in the heartache, the sorrow, and the grief. We share in their will to make our country a better place to live. As Heather's mom said, her name was Susan, if you are not outraged, you are not paying attention. Heather is our daughter. Heather is our sister. Heather is our friend. And as Susan went on to say, let's channel that anger, not into hate, not into violence, and not into fear. Let's channel our anger into righteous action. I am here this evening to assure you that equal rights for all is fundamental to being a citizen of our great country. And in Medford, we hope to lift your heart and to empower your soul. As Medford's mayor, I stand with all of you that Medford is no place for hate. And I'll leave you tonight with a quote by Amy Maddox from Underneath We Are All the Same. He prayed, it wasn't my religion. He ate, it wasn't what I ate. He spoke, it wasn't my language. He dressed, it wasn't what I wore. He took my hand, it wasn't the color of mine. But when he laughed, it was how I laughed. And when he cried, it was how I cried. Stay strong, God bless you, and I see you.
It's now my honor to introduce to you Mr. Neil Osborne of the Medford Office of Diversity.
Good evening, Medford. I see you.
I see you.
I'm proud to stand with fellow Medford citizens who will take the time to say, Medford is no place for hate. I have the distinct honor to be able to represent your city as its Director of Diversity and Inclusion, D&I. It is critical for us as citizens of concern for others that when we see ugliness, that we band together to say, Medford will not tolerate it. So I thank you for taking even a moment to send this important message. What happens may not happen next door, the next town over, but what happens is not welcome if you, because who you are, what religion you want to practice, what you look like or who you want to love, it doesn't matter. You are our neighbor, and Medford will always say, we see you. While I'm sorry that we have to gather this way, I am proud. I am proud to be of Medford that will take the time to join together in a nation in different little towns and cities that says we aren't going to stand for a country that moves towards hate. There's more work to do. There will be more work tomorrow and next week and next month. But as long as we are willing to stand out in public and make a stand that we are inclusive, we can make a difference together. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Rabbi Bram David of Temple Shalom in Medford.
Today we come together in grief and despair. Today we come together in grief and despair over the horrific events in Charlottesville, including the brutal murder of Heather Heyer, may she rest in peace, along with the injuring of many in an act of domestic terrorism by white supremacists. We are also saddened by the deaths of Virginia State Troopers H.J. Cullen and Burke M.N. Bates. But we are not here just to mourn, to say more words and prayers. We are looking for a way to respond, to move forward, a way to fight hate, and a way to grow closer together. In the Jewish community, we have some Holocaust survivors still with us today. At Temple Shalom, we have children of survivors and many others who have lost family members during the Holocaust. The Jewish response to the Holocaust that I grew up is with two words, the phrase, never again. This short phrase of defiance and resolve was originally written down on the walls of the Buchenwald concentration camp by survivors in 1945, shortly after it was liberated by U.S. troops. Behind the phrase is a constant fear that no matter how comfortable we may feel, even in America, it can happen again. So we say never again. It is a wake-up call to action, to not sit in silence when we or any other community is facing bigotry and oppression. This week we have seen scenes of overt racism, anti-Semitism, and bigotry that I never thought we would see in America. When we see white supremacists, Nazis, racists marching in the streets, waving Confederate flags, the swastika, and all other symbols of hate, unhooded, unashamed, armed to the teeth, it's time to wake up and say, never again.
Amen.
When worshipers at the Beth Israel Synagogue were menaced by neo-Nazis with semi-automatic rifles, shouting Nazi slogans, blood and soil, and Sieg Heil, among others. Where the worshipers had to flee out the back door because the supremacists were threatening to burn down the synagogue, it's time to wake up and say never again.
Never again.
Here in our own backyard, the Boston Holocaust Memorial was vandalized for the second time in a week after 25 years of no such incidents. When we hear the sound of broken glass on our streets, it's time to wake up and say, never again.
Never again.
When we see the glorification of statues of Confederate soldiers, officers, and officials who perpetrated slavery, the greatest horror and injustice in American history, it's time to wake up and say, never again. But how do we put never again into action? We start by increasing our love, respect, and understanding in our communities and our nation. This Sabbath, this Shabbat, on Saturday in synagogues around the world, we will be reading the 10th chapter of Deuteronomy. See, I put before you this day a choice between blessing and curse. The verb in Hebrew is re'eh, see. In the next verse we're told tishme'u, to hear, to listen. How do we choose blessing over a curse? First, we must see, and then we must listen. We need to see our neighbors, to say, I see you. I recognize and acknowledge you and your humanity. We then need to listen to their stories, their experiences, their histories, their traditions, their fears, and their hopes. I would like to leave you with the sound of the shofar. It is a non-verbal call to action, repentance, justice, and healing. It is a sound meant to wake us up, spur us to action, bring us together, and to fear no evil in the difficult days and weeks ahead of us.
I would now like to introduce the Reverend Wendy Miller Olapade from Sanctuary Church in Medford, who will lead us in an exercise together.
I'm so honored and blessed when my colleagues have done such a beautiful job so far. I need to say a word before we do the exercise that we want to invite you to say some words to each other. But as a pastor and a parent, as a neighbor and a moral leader, as a white person of great privilege, I need to lift up as an act of confession that the entire events of last week and all of the conversation on CNN and Fox News and everything that's happened since, and so many other moments that we have experienced in our history as a nation, are systemic and communal expressions of white privilege and racism that continue to pervade our nature's spiritual ethos. Friends, if we only condemn the acts of this past weekend without condemning the roots of racism, which perpetuate discrimination in our American schools, in our justice system, in our businesses and healthcare systems, then we have failed to love our neighbor. If we believe, as our forefathers wrote into the Constitution, that justice is for all, then we must work for that justice, towards wholeness for all people. And we must work for it now, by standing with the oppressed, by speaking out against political and religious powers, and by courageously embodying a just world for all. We must be true solidarity partners with those who march in the streets. We must move from our comfort and our walk alongside those who seek to resist and agitate and inform and comfort. We must resist hatred and violence. We must also agitate ourselves in our comfortable suburban setting and our neighbors to acknowledge racism within and among us. We must inform ourselves and our neighbors what our sacred stories reveal to us of a just world for all. We must lament and grieve with those who are injured or murdered during violent confrontation with those who mean to harm. And we must comfort those who have been discriminated against with the transformative love of God for neighbor. But we must also see each other. The theme of our rally is #ICU. It is both about seeing each other as whole human beings and about the fact that we need intensive care as it relates to racism today. As it relates to homophobia today. As it relates to anti-Semitism today. And the list goes on and on and on. We need intensive care. And we are only going to do that amongst ourselves. We need to deal with our history, with the history and the horror and the heritage that privileges white and wealthy over non-white and non-wealthy. That deserves it. Let me say that again. We need to deal with the history that privileges white and wealthy over over non-white and non-wealthy. So I'm going to ask you to be engaged here for a minute, as I am wont to do, those of you who know me. We're going to enter a time that we're going to literally look at each other, and we better hurry because it's getting dark. I want you to take the hand of somebody else and form circles of 5 people, and do it really quickly. Make a circle of 5.
Okay. Circle.
Try to choose people. Anybody, 5 people.
Come on.
Now we're 6.
Give me a person. Give me a person.
Take too long if y'all
There
do
you
more
go.
than 5. You rule breakers over there.
There we go.
God, I love rule breakers. All right, are you ready? All right, here we go. I want you to take a moment and look into the eyes of every single person in your circle and say, I see you.
I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you.
Okay, that was pretty beautiful. That was beautiful. You did it. You followed those instructions really well. Yes. I see you. Thank you. They're seeing me up here. Now I want us to enter into a moment of confession. This is a practice that comes from every tradition that there is, and it is where we need to be. So if you are able to confess, be with me in that spirit, and I'm going to put some words in your mouth, but let's be in it together. God of great courage and peace, grant us the strength needed to challenge the systems of racism so that we can clear a path for justice. We believe racism is present in our society, in our churches, and in our institutions, and throughout time has manifested itself in many forms and varying degrees. We know that racism is alive in our language and in our structures, and through our system works to deconstruct goodness and love. Racism exists, and it challenges the love that we want to cry. We cry peace knowing that we are the instruments of God's peace, and that such peace cannot exist without justice. And so, compassionate one, help us to understand how this racism finds life in our hearts and in our cries. And in this time of tense anticipation, may we commit ourselves to be people of your way, people crying and creating justice, crying and creating equity, crying and creating peace for all in this wilderness of hatred. May it be so. And so we invite you in your circles to share with each other for 5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes, which is why you need 5 people in your circle. So if you have 10 people in your circle, you only get a half a minute each. 1 or 2 words. How do you feel right now? What do you hope for? And what are you going to do about this? How do you feel? What do you hope for? What are you going to do? 2 words each. How do you feel? What do you hope for? What are you going to do? Go.
I feel angry. I'm hopeful for real change in our society sooner rather than later. And I feel like I need to do more personally in my own community to make that happen.
I feel sad, tired, that I hope that this will be the opening of a dialogue. I'm not terribly optimistic, but and what I need to do, I need to get out of my bubble more.
How do you feel?
Is very
what do you hope for?
insular,
What are you going to do?
I need to know more people.
I'd say I probably feel mostly tired, and also a combination of sad as well as motivated and inspired. What I hope for is probably the most unlikely thing is this all goes away and resolved and never comes back again. What I think is more likely is that through some struggles that more people are able to come together like we are to make a difference and eradicate almost entirely all of this hate and suffering. I feel tired.
What do you hope for?
I hope that this will all go away.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna do anything? You don't know? It's okay.
I think a lot of us don't know.
I feel frustrated, and I feel hopeful that there was a purpose, that we needed to expose this going on in our community and bring out to light and let people know that this was not okay, that you can't be like this, and that it's not welcome here, and that all of this stuff going on this past 9 months was for a reason, and that we can make real change out of it. I'm going to have faith that we can, because otherwise I'm going to be frustrated and depressed and pissed, and that's not helpful.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you.
Hear how other people are feeling about it.
And you two will be shocked to hear this, but I have never met these two in my entire life.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Sarah, but
Emily.
Alicia.
Timmy. Christopher.
It's really nice to meet you guys.
They sometimes feel that I know everybody in Medford.
I'm new to Medford.
She stops and talks for hours on end.
Yes, welcome. We're a good community. I'm glad to see this turnout on 24 hours notice, frankly.
And I'm glad they did something. You know, like there was a lot of towns had rallies last night, and a lot of people were like, well, "Where's Medford's?" But it was just hadn't gotten finished planning yet.
Yes. And there's a vigil. You saw that too.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I have flyers for the vigil. I feel like we should give stacks of them to people to take elsewhere, because that's a the people who are here heard about it all the same way. Facebook. And so, wait, where am I? Oh, you know what? I handed them to my husband. So,
Yeah.
Well, if you see them,
but you should get a stack
I'm
of.
good at flyering.
Because it's good to get them out to places where people who are not seeing the social media.
Yeah.
I was trying to live stream it to see if, and there are in fact Medford people watching it, Lambert and Ruth, and I can't see who else. So maybe
Ruth
I
is
don't
in
know.
the person we know from church.
Lambert? You know Lambert?
Wait, Lambert is in Calvin Lambert?
Oh, no, not him. Lambert is the assistant rector to Reverend Wendy, but he's a community minister, and so lots of people know him.
Okay, our time is up. Let's take one more word with each other. Let's say the words "bless you" to each other.
We need that.
And I want to say a final close. If you join me in thanking our men and women from the police department who are here offering us. We are so grateful for their presence.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce to you Laura Rotolo of the American Civil Liberties Union.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm feeling lifted up by that exercise we just did, so thank you, Reverend Wendy. But I want to echo a lot of the sentiments that you heard this evening, especially what Reverend Wendy talked about a little earlier. I feel that we are at a crossroads in the United States, that this is a moment to either revert to petty partisanship and political differences, or we can have a frank and transformative discussion about our history and about white supremacy. And by white supremacy, I don't mean the KKK, and I don't mean the Nazis with tiki torches. I mean the system that we all live in today. The system where our boardrooms and our legislatures are filled with mostly white men, and our prisons are filled with mostly people of color. Now, none of us here has ever owned a slave, so we don't bear that personal responsibility, but we are part of the system that enslaves all of us by causing injustice on all of us. And today, I think, when we look at what happened in Charlottesville, we can call them extremists, we can call them violent, but they are but the extreme manifestation of something that has existed for a very long time in this country. For something that has been boiling up for years, and that the Trump administration has just held on to and made stronger. But it's something that we should think about to the very founding of this country. At the ACLU, we love our Constitution. We support our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence, all of the amendments. But we also know that that document was created on major injustices. It was created on the genocide of the native peoples of this continent, and this country was built on the backs of enslaved people who were ripped from Africa. And that is a wound that we have never healed. And this is the moment to really think about the legacy of those injustices and how they manifest themselves today in the racism that we see across our systems. So when we look at these statues, they're not just beautiful statues, Mr. Trump. If you want them, you can put them in the middle of Trump Tower if you like. They are symbols. They are symbols. And I want to just read something from an activist named Tanisha Hudson from Charlottesville. She said, when she looks at the statue, she says, this is the face of supremacy. This is what we deal with every day as African Americans. You can't stand in one corner of the city and not look at the master sitting on top of Monticello. He looks down on us. He's been looking down on the city for God knows how long. This is Charlottesville, and this is us. I see you, but I see me. I see us. And I think this is the moment to acknowledge our history. You know, I agree with President Trump. We definitely learn from our history. The history is not erased when we tear down these structures. But we should acknowledge our history, where it has brought us, and move forward together. Together. And I want to teach you a chant that was taught to me by a group of undocumented students who are just amazing activists here in Boston. It's called the Student Immigrant Movement. They are out. They are fierce. And they taught me this chant, and I'll say it once and then maybe we can repeat it. And it says, the idea is that we are bound together, right? That our injustices against one is an injustice against all. And so we fight together for our common liberation. And the chant is this: it is our duty to fight. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Please say it with me. It is our duty to fight. It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you.
Before I introduce our final speaker tonight, I would like to call your attention to the flyers that have been passed out. There are still more if you did not get one. There will be a follow-up to this rally on Sunday evening at 7 p.m. at Grace Episcopal Church. Tonight was a rally, and on Sunday evening we will have a vigil, a time of prayer and contemplation and hope for the future. Our final speaker this evening is the Reverend Gerald Bell of Shiloh Baptist Church in Medford.
God bless you, Medford! God bless you, Medford! Let's give the Lord a hand clap of praise. This is the day that the Lord has made. We should rejoice and be glad in it. I am so glad I wore a white shirt today. You would not be able to see me. Do you see me? I see you. Amen. Beloved, before we go, remember, on Sunday at 7 p.m., Grace Church, you must come out because we've got to build upon this. Now, I want to give you one example. How many of you have seen the movie or read the book, The Help? Wow. Well, I just saw the movie 2 weeks ago. Wouldn't go near the movie, wouldn't go near the book because it was too painful. That was my upbringing in America, of a mother and no father who worked in the homes of other people to help build this country. Couldn't watch it. What happens is, when we see each other is one thing, but when we listen to each other, it's another thing. And when we hear each other, it's even more. What I've learned in Boston is that, thank God for all of the different races and people, because Boston taught me that white people aren't just white. They could be Italian, they could be Irish, they could be, but as a black person in America, I lumped everybody and painted everybody with the same brush. But until we see each other, till we hear each other, until we begin to listen to each other, will this country change. We all have a story about race. We all have a story about pain. We all have a story about difference. No one has the mega bucks or the Powerball on pain and suffering in America. But if we would just listen to one another, if we would see one another, if we would hear one another, we would all be able to change. God bless you all. We'll see you soon. I see you, Medford. I see you. Hug somebody and say, help's on the way. Help's on the way. God bless you all. Amen. Put your flashlights on so we can all get up out of here. Amen.